Right. We are moving into a new theme. As of May 4th, we are moving into themes around support and receivership. So I invite you to consider pausing this video and just asking yourself what comes up for you when you hear that. What comes up for you around the idea of somebody really abundantly supporting you? What comes up when you think of yourself as someone who receives generously? Yes, I said receives generously because it is a generous act to open to receive a gift that someone else wants to give. What are the stories around being able to be loved, supported, and cared for by life, by your partner, by work culture? Just ask yourself what's there, because I find that we're talking loosely about the gate two in human design, which I have had a deep relationship with because it's pretty central in my own human design chart. And it's a theme I've worked with before I even knew about human design, because I have been a helper ever since I can remember, which is also, I've learned, often referred to as high functioning codependency. So there's a lot of weird cultural conditioned stuff when it comes to giving versus receiving, and what is valued and what is something to be proud of versus embarrassed of. And this transit, as this theme moves through the collective, it is inviting all of us to get curious about what that relationship is with giving and receiving. And if we are in a place where we want it to come into greater balance, and if we're really honest, do we want more? Could we benefit from having more support? Could we benefit from being brave enough and humble enough to receive? Now, I'm talking about all kinds of resources here. I think a lot of times people immediately think of money, and that might be what's up for you, but it could be energy, it could be attention, presence, it could be time, it could be nourishment, nurturing. It could be anything that is a valuable resource that could could be supportive for you. So ask yourself where you're not asking for what you want to need, and where life might be already trying to give it to you, but you are blocking it because of some sort of, it could be a knee-jerk response to, like if somebody opens the door, say, I got it. Or if somebody says, let me buy your coffee. And you go, no, 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 I don't need to, you don't need to do that. It could be very small things that you start to notice rather than being able to say, thank you. That's so generous of you. I really appreciate that. It also could show up as compliments. A lot of times, I find this especially in conversations with women, that when somebody gives a compliment, there can be a deflection, or there can be I was just talking about this with somebody recently, that there can be this tendency to go, oh yeah, I got it on sale. And that is not receiving the reflection, because often it is not about the clothing anyway. Often it's somebody who sees you deeply, sees some aspect or feels you, and is trying to find words to reflect that back. So it really is a kindness when we practice receiving, and we are going counterculture when we do it, because most of us, and certainly in the United States, the culture that we are really steeped in prides independence. It prioritizes not needing. It prioritizes, in many ways, doing with little, especially in helping healing nonprofit realms. There's a lot of that. It really doesn't prioritize just abundant support of the human. And so this transit is inviting us to open to more support. And I encourage you to think about it in terms of your relationships. I encourage you to think about it in terms of your relationship with day-to-day life. It's a very interesting practice to say, I'm going to walk out my door and I'm going to do my best to receive life. It could be that you see a beautiful bird and you allow yourself to feel like you're receiving the gift of seeing that beautiful bird. It could be just pausing long enough to delight in the weather and going, oh, thank you. It also could be that if you're navigating a challenge in life, which many are right now, cultivating a relationship of support with what I often call the beyond. So whatever that is, the something bigger than your life and your problems. So the creative intelligence of nature, God, angels, spirits, ancestors, the consciousness of love. It could just be like, yes, I feel there's a sense of love that is there. Or it could be the creative intelligence of the universe, how nature just knows how to organize itself. And you can kind of rest into that intelligence and benevolent sense of support of the world around you. So cultivating that relationship, something I mentioned in my TEDx was I referenced the research of Dr. Lisa Miller, and she studies what happens in the brain when we cultivate a relationship with something beyond ourselves. So any spiritual connection. And it literally changes our brain. So you can use imagination to build that connection to support your brain it's almost like spiritual CrossFit. So cultivating and practicing this relationship of being supported rather than being in this low to mid-grade nervous system response that's fear-based, that is, the world is overwhelming. My problems and challenges are overwhelming, and it's only me, right? Even if there are people who you know love and care for you, they kind of got their own stuff. A lot of times is what the brain says. But if you can practice cultivating this relationship, even if you just wake up and say, all right, life, I am open to receive the support, the guidance, and the love that you want to send to me today. And if you just breathe into that, that will start to do a thing over time. And you don't have to fully believe it at first. If you're already in a spiritually connected state, then great. Make sure you practice it. Make sure you just remember. And it can be while you're shopping at the grocery store. It can be while you're in an Uber sitting in the back seat, and just say, oh yeah, I need to remember to ask for support. Because the hardest part is remembering to ask, to hold the intention of being supported, because so much unconsciously has been programmed to go it alone while there's lots of people around us. So this gate has brought me to my knees many times. I have talked to over the years about how I've been so stubborn, and I come from a family system that really prioritizes independence. And that comes from lots of generations down of survival and things like that. But I have had to have life experiences that were really overwhelming to where I had to open to support. I didn't have the energy to be the one that was all perfect, tidy, and collected. And so I want to say that, life will sometimes force our hand at that kind of thing, but it's a really beautiful thing when we decide to be devoted to becoming generous receivers of the gifts of life, because there are a lot of gifts. It could be receiving someone's smile. It could be giving someone a genuine smile that is a complete stranger. There are so many forms of practicing receiving support. And this transit is inviting us to deepen our relationship with that. It's asking us to not just default to the way we've always done it, and to potentially be settling for less support than we need to actually live our purpose, to actually thrive, to actually bring our greatest genius into the world, because we cannot change the world and serve powerfully from an empty cup. We just can't. I've tried. I've worked with many clients who have tried. Martyrdom is out, receivership is in, and it's a reprogramming of one's entire system. So, ask yourself, honestly, where would you like to feel more support? If there was a resource you could have more of, what would it be? Would it be time, care, money? What would it be? And are you okay asking for that? Are you okay receiving it when it shows up? And has it already knocked on your door, and have you turned it away? Because if we keep turning it away, we're going to suffer. And a lot of burnout comes from trying to live and give on empty. So if we don't want to do that, we have to learn the art of receiving.